All right, so Red, the purpose of this, you have women business owners from all over the world here. Everyone is a big thinker. Everyone is building a big business, but that has global impact. And the reason we wanted to talk with you is we want to hear your tips, your insight, your inspiration on how'd you do this? Because you started out as a redneck tobacco chewing Bubba.
It hasn't changed much.
I know. From Spur, Texas. So Red, tell us, I mean, you did not grow up with all of this. So you grew up in Spur, and you've always said you just had this drive. I mean, you know, did you ever think your empire would get this big, or where did that come from?
Well, I'm the oldest of 4 children. My dad was an auto mechanic in a very small town out in West Texas between Lubbock and Abilene, which I thought was the greatest place on earth. And it had all of the things that anyone would ever look for in life. There were 16 guys in my high school graduating class, so you give you some idea as to how sophisticated and grand that all of this store was. But from the time I was 14 years old, I was fascinated by how the world of business worked. And it didn't matter what the business was, I was fascinated by how did it start, how do you get into it, what does it do for you? And I learned a lot, I asked a lot of questions, a lot of people gave me a lot of their time, and I got involved in a lot of different things. And I'm really an all-in kind of guy. I'm a today person. I don't be concerned about tomorrow because it may not get here and yesterday's over. So I'm strictly a today person. And I think it works for me. I hope it would work for anyone. But the one thing that God created us all equal is that he gives us all 24 hours a day. No one gets any more, no one gets any less. So when I hear people say, well, if I had this, or so-and-so had this and I didn't have that, the one thing that you had that you're totally equal with everyone else, and God intended it that way, is you got 24 hours every day. And on those 24 hours, the issue is what do you do with them? And I was always fascinated by people's work output, people that accomplish things. I was always goal-oriented, and I set the goals myself. And I set lofty goals of all different kinds. But one of the things that I was very sensitive about was that I wanted to be sure when I went to bed at night that I took stock of what I really did that day. And I developed a program that I call Expect to Win. And I'll share it with you just for a minute. I believe that that it has guided me many, many ways, and more ways than I could ever even think about. But I wanted to be involved in the leadership of our little town, the guys who made things happen. And money didn't really enter into it because I always made money from the time I was 10 or 12 years old.
Did anybody teach you that, or you just figured it out?
No, I figured it out, and then I learned from others because I asked a lot of questions and such, but most important thing I wanted to do was I wanted to be the leader. And I wanted to be the one that was in charge. And it was just really big for me. And occasionally I would accomplish something that maybe I got a little recognition for. And my mom was always very, very straightforward. She always was the same answer. She'd say something like, don't get too full of yourself. You got a long way to go, boy. You haven't accomplished anything yet. So I accepted that, and the journey began. So that's enough of that subject. But I
Oh,
was
but
just saying.
you made a quote that I just love this, because you said on your drive, you said some years back in an article, not ours, but all I wanted out of life was to be the go-to guy, the guy who was in a position of power to make the decisions that really matter. I used to think of myself as the little dog that kept chasing the big shiny red fire truck. I finally caught up with the truck, and I know what I want to do with it. I want to ride.
Well, this is a way of expressing what I've already said in another way. Every way, there are all different ways you measure things, but to me, the reason that I really became really serious about expecting to win was that I began to put almost everything I did every day into the column of did I win or did I lose. And when I would go to bed at night, I'd kind of recap the day. And that meant, was I a better friend? Was I helpful to someone? Did I do something that made a difference to anyone? And when I would find out in recapping the day that I really didn't get much done, it would bother me. And I couldn't wait to the next morning to where I could try to get more than what I normally would get done. I don't have any fear of not making it. And I sense in so many people, so many times, I hear I wish I had, I wish I had. I never want that to be a part of my vocabulary. I don't, whatever it is. If I wish I had, well, then I'm going to do it. And I've had a lot of wins, a lot of big wins. And it has been able for me to then bring a lot of other people along, because you find out real quickly there's only so much you can do just yourself. And you've got to cultivate an atmosphere around you to where people want to be around you. And when people want to be around you, then they will try to help you.
Can we talk about when you turned 50 and hitting a hardest moment?
Oh, the alcoholism, yes.
Because everything wasn't perfect, and I think, and the point I want to make here, Red, is that so many of us have gone through different challenges that could have stopped us in our tracks, and you almost had one of those moments, and it was pretty rough.
Well, maybe some of you have had a touch of addiction, and addiction to anything. I don't care what it is. But when you realize that something that you really enjoy has become something that you have to have, it becomes a tremendous burden. And people who have never been through an addiction really don't understand it. The doctors don't understand it. But I can tell you that it is pure hell. I never had anything in my life. I had a lot of setbacks, but I never had anything that put me in a state of depression. And when I was about 48, I already was very, very successful, beyond any means that anyone would ever even think about. But I grew up as a non-drinker because the first place where we lived was what we called dry country, and you couldn't buy alcohol for 100 miles in any direction, and nobody in my family drank alcohol anyway. So I wanted to be a world-class athlete, and I was very careful as to what my intake in my body. So I was never a smoker, for example, and I started chewing tobacco because I owned a baseball team when I was 20. I was 25, and all the guys chewed tobacco. So I got into that, but that's another story. But back to the alcohol, when I was 48, I realized that I was no longer drinking for pleasure, and I'd reached a point to where I couldn't live without it. And I would try to go for a day or 2 days without it. I couldn't. And I'm a pretty strong-willed person, but I just couldn't do it. So I talked to my friend who was also my doctor, and he said, "No, you're just working too hard. You have too many hours." I said, "No, that's not it. I know. I'm changing dramatically." And I said, "I don't like it. I don't like it at all." And the beautiful part about it was I never had any serious problem from it, like so many do. I never had any accidents. I never had anything that was crazy and out of my head drunk. But I realized I was totally addicted because I couldn't even brush my teeth in the morning until I had a shot of vodka. It wouldn't work. And neither my wife nor my 3 daughters, all precious girls, had any idea I was addicted, because I was not a screaming, falling down drunk, but I was addicted. And about 2:30 one morning, Charlene found me on the floor with the pill bottles all around me, and what had happened was I'd gone into a convulsive state brought on by alcohol, and that had caused me to go into my bathroom to get all these medications, and I was trying to get something to keep me from hurting so, because I couldn't figure how could this have happened. And I didn't know what it was because I was delirious and out of my head. So I get sent to the hospital. Real quickly they said, hey, we're losing him. It's not going to work. Call your pilots and let's get a plane. There's a special unit in Houston. And we need to get over and see if they can help us. So my doctors from San Antonio went with me to Houston. And I was in a coma for about 4 days. And when I came out of the coma, it was like, where have I been? You know, what's going on? And before anyone really could tell me, one of the 3 doctors on my team came in and he said, Red, we've come a long way. He said, I told your wife 7 hours after you got here to make arrangements with the family and all because you're not going to make it. And he said, we began, then within hours, we began seeing a miracle take place. And we didn't know that you were going to make it. And then it looks like maybe another 4 or 5 hours you'd be on dialysis the rest of your life. And then as the day went on, it kept getting better. And he said, we came from totally losing all the systems, all flatlined, up to where you were operating again, moving toward normalcy. And we had trouble getting you out of your coma. That took longer than what we would have thought, but we're here. But the staff was telling me that you gave them a hard time this morning. And I said, well, I did, because I really don't know why I'm here. Nobody really has explained this thing to me. And I said, as a matter of fact, I'm getting kind of upset about it. So I said, just check me out with the office. I'm out of here. And he said, you're what? I said, I'm out of here. And he had a clipboard, if you've seen them in hospitals forever. And that little doctor threw that clipboard across the room and it hit the wall on the other side and papers flew everywhere. And he said, God damn you. He said, I stayed awake 73 hours without closing my eyes, keeping you alive. And now you're going to tell me that you're out of here? I said, well, wait a minute. You tell me. You know, I don't know. Let's go through this. So I'd had a miraculous recovery.
What did you learn? So you recovered out of that. You made it out of that. You survived out of that. How did you change your life going forward? How did that change the way you approached going into every day?
Well, it really didn't change anything except I quit drinking. And one thing is I realized that, number one, that drinking took a lot of time. So suddenly I had a lot more time, and that was good. Also, drinking was filled with sugar and that alcohol. So I shed about 20 pounds. And I've always been a little on the heavy side, so I love that part of it.
You're rocking the 8-pack?
And so, but a lot of funny things happened. We were at a social gathering, and of course the word got around that I'd been ill, and that I'd quit drinking. And so one of our close friends takes Charlene aside and said, you know, Charlene, I know this is a little personal, but I feel like we're close enough friends I can ask you this. Now that Red has quit drinking, what's he like? And Charlene, being really true to her great humorous self, she said, "Oh, Don, you wouldn't believe it. He's dull, very dull." So she was not too helpful in it. But
Yeah.
at any rate, I'll just say to you that I just want to touch on this. Extended families, you'll have people who get addicted because we have so many chemicals that you will get addicted to. Alcohol is just one of them. But the big thing is just try to encourage the people who have it. Don't try to doctor them yourself because you can't. But encourage them to get some help. And the big thing is it's not a brain tumor. You can get over it. And it's not easy. It's tough as hell to get over it. But you can get over it. And you can live. And if you don't do that, it's going to kill you. And there's no way out of it. So now where are you going?
Now we're going to move on for a moment. We're going to leave some time for some Q&A here as well. But I'd like to move on to some business advice, because one of the things that you talk about in terms of a key to success is you got to have a hook.
Yeah, well, I call it a hook. Others would call it a main thing that would get people's attention. And you got to, I believe that you spend your life selling, regardless what your role is, whether you're an architect, whether you are a librarian, whatever. You're really selling all your life. And we're selling ourselves to other people. We're selling ideas. We're doing this and that. And we might actually be selling products for a price. But in doing that, you've got to have a hook. And what I've always looked for, and I love selling things and buying things, but what I look for is a story tied to something. So you come in and let's say that I'm selling you a living room suite, and the factory's already told you say this, say this, say this, but then I want to look and see kind of like what you like, and I want to get to know you a little better before I start the selling process. And then if I feel like I know you a little better, then I'll get a lot more personal and tell you how I think I can really make you feel good with this buy that you're making. And I try to sell the attitude of what you're going to get out of all this, more so than just it's another washing machine or it's another this or that.
Could we do an example?
And
Are you game for that?
Well, anything, you know.
Well, let's do an example and show them. Okay, so here, sell me why I would want to invest in one of these things. These are Red's companies, Red McCombs Partner Impact. So Red, I've got $50 million and I'm like, I don't need any of this. So will you give me a whirl?
Well, you really do. And Ingrid, to be totally honest with you, it really doesn't mean much to me, but I really want to help you. And what you need is to get into this emergent technologies down here, because you're dealing there with medical issues. And you are ideal for that, because you make people feel good when you're around them. And there you're going to be dealing with people who need what this product is, and you're ideal for it. So let's give it a little try here and show you what you'd be doing with this.
Can I ask you a question though? Because I've got another person with a company just like that one, and they're telling me that if I put $50 million in, I'm gonna get a 10x on my money within the next 3 years. So how does this compare to that?
Well, I'm not even gonna tell you something like that. I think you might do a lot better, and at the same time you might do a lot worse. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to sell the product. And so don't buy all that. Listen to me, and you're going to like what you get.
Can you see why he's a billionaire and did his magic? You have talked about the 3 foundations of business success, and you've said writing down day-to-day goals, getting personally involved in the business, and paying attention to details.
Well, that's about the whole story.
Yeah.
And
what about people, I mean, and what about the financial acumen? I mean, you're dealing in numbers that a lot of people never ever see. So how knowledgeable on those numbers would you suggest everyone in here make sure they are in their own businesses?
Well, the thing there is, I use a phrase of, it's not how much you pay for something, it's how much that gets you back. So whether it's a $10 million deal, whatever it is, when are you going to get your money back, and how fast can you get to a cash flow? Cash flow is the mother's lip of all successes. And I treat them all as if they're like your children. One is big, one is small. It doesn't matter. We're gonna try to make it work better. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens when we don't? We pass it on to someone else. And I've sold a lot of companies to other people who do real well with them, and that I didn't do well with them, because I don't have a lot of patience that I want to spend like I'm gonna make this work. Well, and it kind of, you have to be careful in talking like this with students, because students are all taught, you just keep at it till you make it work. I don't believe that at all. You put what you consider a reasonable amount of effort, a reasonable amount of investment. It's not making the headway you like, even though you may be making a little profit. You're spending a lot of time, got a lot of your money tied up, and you're not real happy about it. Well, then send it on to somebody else, and let somebody else earn it, get the big money. You got to feel, you got to be so excited about the opportunity that you have every day, and that's again, you're back in this expect to win. How do you expect to win? Everybody says, hey, you really could use me because I'm a winner. I really hate that phrase, because everybody can say that. It's meaningless to say that. I'm a winner. Everybody wants to be a winner. But expecting to win, you have to know that you got to prepare yourself, and you got to be prepared to win. And then you got to execute to win. And you can fall off at either place along the line. You're not prepared, you can't answer the questions, you got issues that you don't have answers to, you ran into something that you didn't expect, a lot of things. But if it's getting to where it kind of, as my grandma would say, gnaws on you, well, think a little bit about whether you want to fool with that thing anymore or not.
So you're sitting in a room full of women entrepreneurs, and before we go to questions, what I'd like to hear from you is this. So you mentioned that of your portfolio, there's one woman that's actually part of the team, okay? And there was something that I saw that you said in April 1997, they gave $6 million to the Southwestern for construction of a student center. The following month, after Jody Conrad, the director of women's athletics at UT Austin, told McCombs that women's sports had no large benefactors, and you turned around and wrote a check for $3 million. And you said, I really felt bad that I hadn't given money to women's sports before. And there's so many analogies, of course, between sports and business. So what I'm curious about is, have you, I mean, there was this good old boys club back in the day. It's changing. I mean, we are perceiving the former good old boys club. What are you seeing change in terms of the women getting involved in leadership, and what recommendations do you have, for example, to add more women to your team? Do you seek that out? Are women not applying? I mean, why do we not have those equality in numbers just yet?
Well, I think that is really not an issue anymore. I think it's someone who thinks that they're not getting the right kind of chance because they're female. You better get real serious, because I doubt that that's the issue. People that want to get involved with you want to see that you're productive, and the fact that you're a woman or not a woman, I would say in many instances, a woman is a plus. But I don't really buy that. So,
is it fair to say, so Steve Felice came and talked with us earlier, or some of us earlier today, who's president of Dell with Michael, who I worked with for many years. And one of the things that we shared, and I often share, is that deal makers, and I learned this in spades from you, deal makers want to work with deal makers, and they could care less what you look like, act like, sound like, talk like. What they care about is the quality of your ideas.
Absolutely.
And your expectation to win.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, if you're good with it, I'd love to open it up for some questions. This is such an amazing opportunity, and Fred's been such a gift in my life for many, many years. Again, anytime there's an ask, he's there. And I'm just
I'll be happy to answer questions, and I will tell you before we get run out and have to leave or whatever.
We're not running out just yet.
No,
you
no,
can't
no,
get
no,
rid of
no,
us
no,
just
no,
yet.
No.
Yeah, okay.
But I want to tell you, so I get this in, you have a fantastic leader here. I mean, I love this girl. I would give her any kind of responsibility, anytime, in any way. She is so talented and has a heart bigger than she is. I mean, she is the real.
Sorry.
She is the real thing. And I love you for it.
I love you too. We often talk about how, and excuse me for getting teary-eyed, I just think the world of him, and what a gift. Thank you.
If you can't cry, you can't laugh.
Good, thank you. But see, this is the type of people, when you have them in our lives, I mean, there's no way that when I was a kid, I could have imagined doing the things I'm doing today. And it's people like Red who have been there all along to support, and these people are so critical on our journey, so thank you. Amen. Amen. Oh, okay, Marcia Firestone, please meet Red McCombs.
Hi, Marcia.
What was your first business and why was it successful?
My first real business, like an entrepreneur kind of business, was in our little town. We didn't have any Hispanics, but the Hispanics came through in the winter when they pulled bowls, as we call it, because our land was so poor out there, it wouldn't raise the kind of cotton where you pick the cotton out of the bowl. You had to just pull the bowl. So the itinerant cotton pickers would come through for about 3 weeks in the winter and work those fields and keep going north. And I noticed that several people, our little street had 3 blocks downtown with stores on either side. And I noticed that people started putting little stands up selling on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, selling these itinerant cotton pickers goods, everything from foodstuffs to used clothes, you name it. And I'm thinking, hey, there's money being taken, changing hands. So I said to my mother, I'm going to get me a deal and I'm going to put it in for Saturday and Sunday. I knew what the kick was going to be. She said, you're not working on Sunday. And I said, well, those are the only 2 days these people are here. And we're doing something for them and something that they like and they need. And they come to town, they've been working hard all week. And what else can they do? And so, well, what are you going to do? And we had a wholesale grocer in our town that was stocked out of Lubbock. I said, I want to go down to the Williams Company and get me a 100-pound sack of roasted peanuts and a bunch of those little bags that they put them in, and I'm going to sell roasted peanuts. And she said, you don't know one thing about what you're even talking about. And I said, well, that's true. So I hit on my dad, and he said, honey, boy, that's kind of, that's kind of tough. I said, please, please. So he got them for me. So when I tell the story, I had a source of capital. That was my father. He got the peanuts for me. I put them in the little sacks, and I hit the streets. And the first 2 weeks, I sold everything I had. And I had all my nickels in a milk bucket, and a real old tin milk bucket. And I turned that tin milk bucket over, and those nickels on the table, I thought I was rich. My father patiently took the nickels and put them together, 20 at a time, so he could wrap them. for $1 worth of nickels. And when he finished, he said, "I'm really proud of you, son." He said, "You worked hard, you've done a good job, you made a lot of people happy for doing this, but I'm sorry you didn't make any money." And I said, "Well, all of that is my money." He said, "No, it's all my money." Because about all you got is enough to pay for the peanuts. I said, "What?" And really, at 10 years old, I hadn't figured that out. And I said, "It can't be." Because I said, "I worked hard doing that." He said, "Just because you work hard doesn't mean you make a profit." And I was 10, I didn't know, and then I figured it out. Hey, wait a minute. If I'd have sold twice as many, and they didn't cost me any more money, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I put half as many peanuts. I couldn't wait. I said, "You got to get me another 100-pound sack, because they're only going to be here for another week." He said, "You've already done that. You don't need to." I said, "Please, please, I've got to do it." So he got them. And instead of putting what I put in normally, I put in half as much. Well, that time I got 2 milk buckets, one for him and one for me. So I learned this basic lesson, and you can learn it in any business. You've got to have a product that you can sell, that people want. It's kind of hard to sell them things they don't want. It's tough. But you got to have a product. If you get a product that people want, then you've got to have it priced to where your cost in it doesn't exceed what you're going to gather when you sell it. And it sounds simple, but it really hadn't dawned on me at that time. But from that day on, that's been the going principle with everything. I don't care what something costs. I want to know how much I can get for it.
Lisa, you have a question, and will you introduce yourself to Mr. McCombs here, because you have done some very similar work.
We have. So I'm Lisa Copeland, and I'm a car dealer in Austin, Texas, Fiat Alfa Romeo of Austin. So I'm such a fan of yours and your whole automotive and everything you've done in the automotive space. I serve on the National Dealer Council for Chrysler. And, you're for FCA now, but you're such a legend in the automotive space. And are you out of the auto business now? Totally?
No, we have 6 deals here in town, and my daughter Marcia runs all of them.
I've heard that.
By the way, my daughter Marcia, the automotive news, as you know, which is the Bible of the automotive industry, and not just dealer sales, it's for manufacturers, parts manufacturers, finance companies, banks. You know, it is the weekly story of what's going on in every phase of the automotive business. Each year, for the last 25 years, they select 100 women that are the most prominent women in the automotive industry, anywhere in any of those roles. There were 2 women from Texas selected, and Marcia was one of the 2. So we were very proud of her.
Lisa's the other one.
And that was, well, congratulations. Yeah, well, that's impossible. You know, that's impossible to win that. But you're in a great industry. There's no reason in the world. I think actually, if just to really come down, push to shove, I think women are more capable of selling vehicles than men are. Because you have more interest in your customer. Those boys are about half screwy.
Why are you not playing bigger in that space again like you used to? My husband worked for you 20 years ago.
Well, so did a lot of people. I've trained over 100 dealers, and some of them are in Austin. I love that business. The reason that I sold most in the year 2000, I was the 6th largest dealer group in the United States. And I sold it all because AutoNation came out, and they had these horrendous prices that they were paying, which we'd never seen before, because they had made a deal with the manufacturers, and they could have a lot of deals in one market. And generally, the manufacturers wouldn't let you do that. So when that happened, I grew all of mine by taking in guys who worked for me. And like you're working for me, you do a good job. I promote you 2 or 3 times, and then I'll say, Lisa, you do this and take care of this and do it right for the next 6 months, and I'm going to make you a partner here. So it's what I call sweat equity. So none of these guys had to put up any money. But a lot of them get up to where they own 25% of the deal. But then again, they had some age on them too, because they were as old as I was or older. And they said, hey, Chief, you know, we'd kind of like to cash out, because this public company that was using stockholders' money instead of out of their pocket money, we're paying these unbelievable prices. Well, it's always been very hard for me to turn down a profit. Very hard. Matter of fact, it's almost caused several times of divorces. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But any rate, they were right, and we sold about 40 of those dealerships over just in about 30 or 60 days' time.
Yeah.
I wish I had all of them back. I never know when to sell something or when to. Any rate, I don't have them now. I'll get them back some way. I probably will. But there's no reason why women don't do well in that industry. And they can do anything that there is to do. And I'm so happy you're doing it. Congratulations.